Hello, hello. Welcome. Going to get started soon. Hope you guys are having a lovely Saturday or Sunday, depending on where you are. It's nice to be on the weekend, right? Relax a bit, unwind. Hello, Ashlight. Nice to see you. How are you doing, my friend? That's good, that's good. That's exactly why we are here. Oh, and we have our first drop of the day. Let me just demonstrate. You can type exclamation mark shoot, even add your own emote, and you will drop down. The idea is to hit the target, but of course it's random. So you may not end where you are, but it's fun little interaction. Oh, Ashlight. Looks kinda promising, but... Maybe next time. Thank you for playing though. Alright. Is the volume okay, by the way? I don't want to speak too low or too loud. Especially if the idea is to relax. Let's go over to this screen. Alright, welcome, welcome. As I said in the title, before I go into the actual reading, going to be chilling a bit in my so-called host club. This is like my default screen. It's a place where we can gather, relax, maybe chat a bit. Just waiting until people come in. And then we go to my super secret library, where we will begin reading the stories. This week had sort of a theme, and I would call it humanity and human cultures. On Monday, I played some World of Warcraft, playing a human character out of all the different races. And my goal was to just level for a bit, try and reach the storyline that's specific to humans. I would say I'm very well on the way, but still have a little bit to go. Probably gonna be finishing it up in the next couple of weeks. I also stream some Duolingo because those of you who don't know, I like to be a variety streamer. Sometimes you will catch me playing some video games. Sometimes you will catch me practicing a foreign language. For those of you who don't know, I speak 5 different languages. 4 of them I would say fluently. My native tongue, Hungarian, Romanian, the place where I live, English, of course, the big international language, German, another foreign language commonly taught where I live, and finally, currently still studying Japanese. That's more like out of passion, out of love for the Japanese culture, and also for the challenge. I like to keep my mind sharp. Even though I'm past the school years and I don't miss having homework and assignments and projects and such, I do think it's a good idea to keep on learning new stuff. So this week for Duolingo, I did Japanese and later Hungarian, which was more just for fun, but turned out to be very challenging from time to time. They do say Hungarian is one of the more difficult languages in the world. Hey, good morning, Bibli. Good morning. Hope you had a lovely little sleep. We had a bit of a celebration yesterday, haven't? Hope you're feeling well. If you don't mind, let me give you a hug. We could all use a bit of human affection from time to time. By the way, any of you can type hug, sorry, and username, and you can hug people. Thank you very much for the hug back. Until I get channel points and such and emotes, this is, I think, a cute way to interact with my viewers. Nice try. We don't do that here, Kitty. But let me give you a bit of a shout out for the viewers here who may not know you. Please join me in showing some love for Bibli. She's a wonderful streamer who I've been following for many months now. She can be a bit sussy sometimes, as they say, but she's quite a sweetheart, and if you want to catch her playing some games, hang out with friends, please feel free to check out her channel. Oh, well, this is a constant issue we are running into, right, Bibli? Don't worry, right now we are just chatting. I haven't gotten into the actual ASMR yet. That's gonna happen when I switch to the next screen. Oh, hello, Mother Naziwa. I hope you are well. Always nice to see you. Mommy? Is she your mommy too? Oh, and there's the message. Thank you for the hug. I appreciate it. Oh, and looks like the game already started. Alright. Thanks for checking in, Bibli. I'll see you soon. Mwah. Looks like the bot managed to land on the target. Can any of us beat it? Oh, I think I just barely beat its score. Anyone else wants to try? You can type exclamation mark shoot. And try your luck in landing on target. You can also fool around while I read my stories in the library, don't worry. Let me just get ready here. The bar is closing soon. Last call. Alright. Let me just go to the jukebox real quick. Ah, that's lovely, isn't it? I think it's very fitting for today's plan. Of course, we're going to be carrying this with us into the library. Please follow me, don't be shy. Ah, we are back here. You may remember this abandoned library. Since last time I discovered that there is some, shall we say, latent magic here. As you can see, there are some books just floating around in the air, which is pretty convenient actually. I don't need to hold anything in my hand. It just floats around eye level and I can read from it. Huh? What's this? VTubing 101 for dummies. Huh? That's very useful for a beginner like me, I suppose. Oh, is this in the corner? Oh, oh my. Uncensored handholding, that's way too scandalous for this. However, I do have some folk tales here somewhere. Well, I think it's this one actually. Yeah. Let's see. Some of these are in English, but I managed to find some that are in foreign language, and conveniently one of the languages that I speak. So please sit back, relax. Put me in the background as you sip on some tea. Perhaps you lay in bed, just relaxing, or in a comfy chair, wrapped up in a blanket. Let us begin, shall we? What should we read first? Just lower the volume on the jukebox real quick. I want you guys to be able to hear me clearly. Going to be doing a bit more soft speaking now. All right. Let us begin with some English fairy tales. How about this one? Very fitting for me. This one is called Mr. Fox by Joseph Jacobs. Hello, O'Connor. Welcome. Nice to see you. Yeah, as you can see, we're in an abandoned library, and turns out some of the books are magical, I suppose. They have a mind on their own. So sometimes they just flutter around. But some of them are nice enough to float around my eye level, so I can read from them. And The one that's right now in front of my eye is called Mr. Fox. These are apparently stories from England, so maybe you've heard some of these before. Lady Mary was young, and Lady Mary was fair. She had 2 brothers, and more lovers than she could count. But of them all, the bravest and most gallant was a Mr. Fox, whom she met when she was down at her father's country house. No one knew who Mr. Fox was, but he was certainly brave and surely rich. And of all her lovers, Lady Mary cared for him alone. Oh, apologize, folks. During the ASMR, I have the parachute game disabled as to not be too distracting, so let me actually disable the bot here. There we go. All right, now back to more relaxation. Where were we? Lady Mary asked Mr. Fox where they should live, and he described to her his castle and where it was, but strange to say, did not ask her or her brothers to come see it. So one day, near the wedding day, when her brothers were out, and Mr. Fox was away for a day or 2 on business, as he said, Lady Mary set out for Mr. Fox's castle. And after many searchings, she came at last to it, and a fine strong house it was, with high walls and a deep moat. And when she came up to the gateway, she saw written on it, "Be bold, be bold." But as the gate was open, she went through it and found no one there. So she went up to the doorway, and over it she found written, "Be bold, but not too bold." Still, she went on till she came into the hall, and went up to the broad stairs till she came to a door in the gallery, which was written, be bold, but not too bold, lest that your heart's blood should run cold." But Lady Mary was a brave one. She was, and she opened the door, and what do you think she saw? Why, bodies and skeletons of beautiful young ladies, all stained with blood. So Lady Mary thought it was high time to get out of that horrid place, and she closed the door, went through the gallery, and was just going down the stairs and out of the hall, and who should she see through the window but Mr. Fox, dragging a beautiful young lady along the gateway to the door. Lady Mary rushed downstairs and hid herself behind a cask, just in time as Mr. Fox came in with the poor young lady who seemed to have fainted. Just as he got near Lady Mary, Mr. Fox saw a diamond ring glittering on a finger of a young lady he was dragging, and he tried to pull it off. But it was tightly fixed and would not come off, So Mr. Fox cursed and swore, and he drew his sword, raised it, and brought it down upon the hand of the poor lady. Oh my, these are turning to be a bit more graphic than I expected. Like I'm going into this one blind, didn't know what to expect. Hope it's not too disturbing. Viewer discretion advised, I would say. The sword cut off the hand, which jumped up into the air and fell of all places in the world into Lady Mary's lap. Mr. Fox looked about a bit, but did not think of looking behind the cask. So at last he went on dragging the young lady up the stairs into the bloody chamber. As soon as she heard him pass through the gallery, Lady Mary crept out of the door, down through the gateway, and ran home as fast as she could. Now it happened that the very next day the marriage contract of Lady Mary and Mr. Fox has to be signed, and there was a splendid breakfast before that. And when Mr. Fox was seated at the table opposite of Lady Mary, he looked at her. "How pale you are this morning, my dear." "Yes," she said, I had a bad night's rest last night. I had horrible dreams." "Dreams go by contraries," said Mr. Fox. "But tell us your dream, and your sweet voice will make the time pass till the happy hour comes." "I dreamed," said Lady Mary, "that I went yestermorn to your castle, and I found it in the woods, with high walls and a deep moat, and over the gateway was written, 'Be bold, be bold.'" "But it is not so, nor it was not so," said Mr. Fox. "And when I came to the doorway, over it was written, 'Be bold, but not too bold.'" "It is not so, nor it was not so," said Mr. Fox. "And when I went upstairs and came to a gallery, at the end of which was a door on which was written, 'Be bold, but not too bold, lest that your heart's blood should run cold.'" "It is not so, nor it was not so," said Mr. Fox. And then I opened the door, and the room was filled with bodies and skeletons of poor dead women, all stained with their blood. "It is not so, nor it was not so, and God forbid it should be so," said Mr. Fox. "I then dreamed that I rushed down the gallery, and just as I was going down the stairs, I saw you, Mr. Fox, coming up the hall, dragging after you a poor young lady, rich and beautiful." "It is not so, nor it was not so, and God forbid it should be so," said Mr. Fox. "I rushed downstairs just in time to hide myself behind the cask, where you, Mr. Fox, came in dragging the young lady by the arm. And as you passed me, Mr. Fox, I thought I saw you try and get her diamond ring. But when you could not, Mr. Fox, it seemed to me in my dream that you out with your sword and hacked off the poor lady's hand to get the ring." "It is not so, nor it was not so, and God forbid it should be so," said Mr. Fox, and was going to say something else as he rose from his seat, when Lady Mary cried out, "But it is so, and it was so. Here's hand and ring I have to show," and pulled out the lady's hand from her dress, and pointed it straight at Mr. Fox. And once her brothers and her friends drew their swords, and cut Mr. Fox into 1,000 pieces. The end. Jesus Christ. Wow, that was not what I expected. I thought it would be like a cute story about the fox, but turned out to be a story about the madman, and what an ending. He was hacked into pieces. Like, I searched these up, like just breaking roleplay a little bit here on a site called fairytales.com. And oh, sorry about that. I should put this somewhere else. Fairytales.com, and it has like folk tales from different regions. You guys can check it out yourself if you like. And I made sure I selected at least one story from each of the regions whose language I speak. But I did not expect that to be so graphic. Good thing I have a mature warning on my channel. Ooh, this one should be interesting. I play Dungeons and Dragons, so I'm very familiar with some of these terms like the Duergar, or as we call it in Dungeons and Dragons, the Deep Dwarf. Let's see what. Let me just skim through it real quick. Make sure it's not anything too graphic. Okay, I think we are fine. But let's see. The Duergar. Folklore and Legends, English. I guess this is not from a particular author, but like a folk tale, an actual folk tale where it's passed down from parent to child, from village to village. And yeah, they kind of forgot who came up with it first. It's kind of like a story around a bonfire, I suppose. Alright, let's begin. The following encounters with the Duergar, species of mischievous elves, are said to have taken place on Simonside Hills, a mountainous district between Rodbury and Elsdon in Northumberland. A person well acquainted with the locality went out one night to amuse himself with the pranks of those mysterious beings. When he had wandered a considerable time, he shouted loudly, "Tint! Tint!" and the light appeared before him like a burning candle in the window of a shepherd's cottage. Thither, with greater caution, he bent his steps, and speedily approached a deep slough, from whence a quantity of moss or peat had been excavated, and which was now filled with mud and water. Into this he threw a piece of turf, which he raised at his feet, and when the sound of the splash echoed throughout the surrounding stillness, the decoying light was extinguished. The adventurer retraced his steps, overjoyed at his dexterity in outwitting the fiendish imps, and in one moment of exultation, as if he held all the powers of darkness in defiance, he again cried to the full extent of his voice, "Tint! Tint!" His egotism subsided, however, more quickly than it arose, when he observed three of the little demons, with hideous visages, approach him, carrying torches in their diminutive hands, as if they wished to inspect the figure of their enemy. He now betook himself to the speed of his heels for safety, but found that an innumerable multitude of the same species were gathering round him, each with a torch in one hand and a short club in the other, which they brandished with such gestures as if they were resolved to oppose his flight, drive him back into the morass. Like a knight of romance, he charged with his oaken staff the foremost of his foes, striking them, as it seemed, to the earth, for they disappeared. But his offensive weapon encountered in its descent no substance of flesh or bone, and beyond its sweep the demons appeared to augment both in size and number. On witnessing on witnessing so much of the unearthly, his heart failed him. He sank down in a state of stupor, nor was he himself again till the grey light of the morning dispersed his unhallowed opponents and revealed before him the direct way to his own dwelling. Another time, a traveller, wandering over these mountain solitudes, had the misfortune to be benighted, and perceiving him near a glimmering light, he hastened thither and found that appeared to be a hut, on the floor of which, between two rough grey stones and embers of a fire which had been supplied with wood, were still glowing and unconsumed. He entered, and the impression on his mind was that the place had been deserted an hour or two previously by gypsies, for on one side lay a couple of old gateposts ready to be split up by fuel, and a quantity of refuse brushwood, such as is left from besom making, was strewn upon the floor. With his material he trimmed the fire, and had just seated himself on one of the stones, when a diminutive figure in human shape, not higher than his knee, came waddling in at the door and took possession of the other. The traveller, being acquainted with the manner in which things of this description ought to be regarded, retained his self-possession, kept his seat, and remained silent, knowing that if he rose up or spoke, his danger would be redoubled. And as the flame blazed upon, he examined minutely the hollow eyes, the stern, vindictive features, and the short, strong limbs of the visitor before him. Hello, Azaria. Nice to see you. I'm just reading some folk tales. Currently reading something called the Duergar, which I thought it would be fitting since you may know Duergar from many fantasy stories, including Dungeons and Dragons, which we like to play together. Oh, that's too bad. I hope you can manage to figure out the furniture and you have everything built up soon. By the way, I'm very glad that you're here. Yes, this is a good opportunity for me to test out the new little command. Just a second. Yeah, there we go. This is my way of giving you a shout out. As you guys can see, Azaria has the artist badge next to me. She agreed to do some emotes and badges for my channel in the future. So look forward to that, and in the meantime, if you like, please check out her Twitter for some artworks and commissions. But let us continue with the story, shall we? I'm glad you like it. Okay, where was I? By degrees he perceived that the hut afforded him little or no shelter from the cold night air, and as the energy of the fire subsided, he lifted from the floor a piece of wood, broke it over his knee, and laid the fragments upon the red-hot embers. Whether this operation was regarded by his strange neighbor as a species of insult, we cannot say, but the demon ceased. As if in bitter mockery, one of the gateposts broke it likewise over his knee, and laid the pieces on the embers in the same manner. The other, having no wish to witness a further display of such marvelous agency, thenceforth permitted the fire to die away, and kept his position in darkness and silence, till the fair dawn of returning day made him aware of the extreme danger to which he was exposed. He saw a quantity of white ashes before him, but the grim dwarfish intruder, with the roof and walls of the hut, were gone, and he himself sat upon a stone, sure enough, but it formed one of the points of a deep, rugged precipice, over which the slightest inadvertent movement had been the means of dashing him to pieces. Wow, so I went into this blindly and didn't expect to see such, let's just say, very graphic and somewhat spooky stories, I guess. Those make for some very good stories. Let's see. Since we have some Romanians in chat, and since I plan to read some of these anyway, let's just go to some Romanian fairy tales now. I wonder if they translated this well. I'm gonna be reading actually some in Romanian too later, but thought I would go through these in English first, and later on you can read in their native language as well. How about that? Yeah. Let's see which one strikes my interest. What seems more interesting? And by the way, guys, I forgot to say, if any of you have any suggestions, recommendations, things you would like me to read, feel free to give me the name in chat and I'll look it up. And fortunately, links won't work, but yeah. Okay. Let me just change the music real quick because I can almost see that this is going to be some kind of spooky story too, so I want to have something more fitting for the background. There we go. Lovely, isn't it? Perfect for relaxation. Cunning Ileane by Might or Mita Kremnitz. Oh my, it says here that it's a 20-minute read. Maybe... Well, it doesn't seem that long when I look at it, so... And let's face it, though, if something is a 6-minute read because I'm reading it really slowly and trying to articulate my words and probably going to get interrupted by chat, let's try and find something a bit shorter. How about this one? I wonder... Oh, so far all of these are pretty long, like 19-20 minutes read. Oh, this one is a bit shorter. Wanna get through as many as possible, so... Yep, here we go. This should be interesting. The Old Woman and the Old Man. Again by Mita Kremnitz. Once upon a time, there was an old man and an old woman who had not a single child in their old age. It was very hard for them, because they had no help, not even to light the fire. When they came home from working in the fields, they were obliged to begin with lighting the fire, then prepare their food. One day, when they were fretting and consulting each other, they determined to look for children, whatever might happen. The old man went one way, the old woman went another, to find the child somewhere. Oh, I can already tell this is going to get dark. The old man met a dog, and the old woman a mouse. When they met again, the old woman asked, "Husband, what have you found?" "A little dog. And you, wife?" "A little mouse." And now they agreed to adopt the mouse for a child and drive the dog away. So the couple returned with the mouse, greatly delighted because they had found what they sought, that is, a child. Okay, so this is not spooky so far, just weird. On reaching home, the old woman began to make a fire. Then she set the pot of sour buttermilk on to boil and left the mouse to watch that it did not fall over while she went to work with the old man in the fields. After she had gone, the porridge boiled and splashed over the top of the pot. The mouse, which was sitting on the hearth, said, "Porridge, don't jump on me, or I'll jump on you." But the buttermilk did not stop, and still splashed over the brim. When the mouse saw this, it grew angry, leaped straight into the pot. Ooh, that's not a good idea. When the old people returned from hoeing and called their child, there was no child to be found. After searching for it a long time with no success, they sat sadly down to eat their dinner. Yet they ate their porridge with great relish until, when the old woman emptied the dish, she found at the bottom, what? The little mouse, their child, dead. Oh, there it is. It's dark again. She began, "Husband, husband, here it is. Our child is drowned in the buttermilk." "How is that possible, wife?" replied the bearded old fellow. When they saw this terrible accident, they began to weep and lament bitterly. The old man in his grief tore his beard, and the old woman pulled the hair out of her head. The old man left the house with tearful eyes and tousled beard, and bough of a tree in front of the hut perched a magpie, which, seeing him, asked, "Why have you pulled out your beard, old man?" "Oh, my dear bird, how can I help tearing my beard, when my little child has drowned itself in the pot of porridge and is dead?" When the magpie heard this, it tore out all of its feathers, leaving nothing but the tail. The old woman set off with her bald head to the well to get a jug of water to wash the dead body of her child. By the well stood a girl with a pitcher, who had come home to draw water. When she saw the old woman, she asked, "My, old woman, why have you torn the hair out of your head till you are perfectly bald?" "Alas, my darling, how can I help tearing my hair and making myself bald when my little mouse is dead?" The girl, in her grief, smashed her pitcher in two. Then she hurried to the Empress to tell her story. The royal lady, as soon as she heard it, fell down from the balcony, broke her ankle, and died, while the Emperor, out of love for his wife, went away and became a monk in the monastery of Lys, beyond the country of truth. While I acquaintance made with grandsires old, to whom the simple tale I told, it seemed to them such perfect chaff, that his bare memory raised a laugh. The end. Oh, well, as we like to say, that escalated quickly, didn't it? Like, it started all cute with an old couple adopting a mouse so they have a child. Then the mouse committed suicide, basically, and then they ate from the food in which the mouse drowned. They found their dead child. They tore out their hair. Then a bird tore out its feathers. Like I'm still processing everything. And then the Empress committed suicide as well. Like, and then it says despair memory raised a laugh. Wow, they must have had some pretty sick sense of humor back then. But yeah, as Azarea said, the Dark Tales of Romania. Huh? I wonder if I can find this in Romanian someplace. I guess I should have read these stories during Halloween, maybe. But regardless, it's still an interesting story. And let's face it, many of the fairy tales are dark, like what you see in television, in Disney and series. Those are very much watered down versions of the actual folk tale. Mm, let's read one more. How about we read two each from each of these regions, and then I'll read one in each foreign language. Let me just have a sip of water first. Lovely. Okay. So these are rather long. I don't wanna stay on one story too much. Hmm. There's not too many. Oh, this should be a good one. The Voice of Death from Andrew Lang's Fairy Books. Once upon a time, there lived a man whose one wish and prayer was to get rich. Day and night he thought of nothing else, and at last his prayers were granted and he became very wealthy. Now, being so rich and having so much to lose, he felt that it would be a terrible thing to die and leave all of his possessions behind. So he made up his mind to set out in search of a land where there was no death. He got ready for his journey, took leave of his wife, and started. Whenever he came out to a new country, the first question that he asked was whether people died in that land, and when he heard that they did, he set out again on his quest. At last, he reached a country where he has told that the people did not even know the meaning of the word death. Our traveler was delighted, and when he heard this and said, "But surely there are a great number of people in your land, if no one ever dies." "No," they replied, "there are not great numbers. For you see, from time to time a voice is heard calling first one and then another, and whoever hears that voice gets up and goes away and never comes back." "And do they see the person who calls them?" he asked, "or do they only hear his voice?" "They both see and hear him," was the answer. Well, the man was amazed when he heard that the people were stupid enough to follow the voice, though they knew that if they went with when it called them they would never return. And he went back to his own home and got all of his possessions together, and taking his wife and family, he set out resolved to go and live in that country where the people did not die, but where instead they heard a voice calling them, which they followed into a land from which they never returned. I can see where this is going. For he had made up his own mind that when he or any of his family heard that voice, they would pay no heed to it, however loudly it called. After he had settled down in his new home and had got everything in order about him, he warned his wife and family that unless they wanted to die, they must on no account listen to a voice which they might some day hear calling them. For some years, everything went well with them, and they lived happily in their new home. But one day, while they were all sitting together around the table, his wife suddenly started up, exclaiming in a loud voice, I'm coming, I'm coming! Oh, get your mind off to the gutter. And she began to look around the room for her fur coat, but her husband jumped up, and taking firm hold of her by the hand, held her fast, and reproached her, saying, Don't you remember what I told you? Stay where you are, unless you wish to die. But don't you hear that voice calling me? She answered. I am merely going to see why I am wanted. I shall come back directly. So she fought and struggled to get away from her husband and to go where the voice summoned. But he would not let her go, and had all the doors of the house shut and bolted. When she saw that he had done this, she said, Very well, dear husband. I shall do what you wish and remain where I am. So her husband believed that it was all right, that she had thought better of it, and had got over her mad impulse to obey the voice. But a few minutes later, she made a sudden dash for one of the doors, opened it, and darted out, followed by her husband. He caught her by the fur coat and begged and implored her not to go, for if she did, she would certainly never return. She said nothing, but her arm fell backwards, and suddenly, bending herself forward, she slipped out of the coat, leaving it in her husband's hands. He, poor man, seemed turned to stone as he gazed after her hurrying away from him, and called at the top of her voice as she ran, I'm coming! I'm coming! When she was quite out of her sight, her husband, no, sorry, when she was quite out of sight, her husband recovered his wits and went back into his house, murmuring, If she is so foolish as to wish to die, I can't help it. I warned and implored her to pay no heed to that voice, however loudly it might call. Well, days and weeks and months and years passed, and nothing happened to disturb the peace of the household. But one day the man was at the barber's as usual, being shaved. The shop was full of people, and his chin had just been covered with a lather of soap, and suddenly, starting up from the chair, he called out in a loud voice, I won't come, do you hear? I won't come! The barber and the other people in the shop listened to him with amazement. But again, looking towards the door, he exclaimed, I tell you once and for all, I do not mean to come, so go away. And a few minutes later, he called out again, Go away, I tell you, or it will be worse for you. You may call as much as you like, but you will never get me to come. And he got so angry that you might have thought that someone was actually standing at the door, tormenting him. At last he jumped up and caught the razor out of the barber's hand, exclaiming, "Give me that razor and I'll teach him to leave people alone for the future." And he rushed out of the house as he were running after someone whom no one else saw. The barber, determined not to lose his razor, pursued the man, and they both continued running at full speed till they had got well out of town. And all of a sudden the man fell head foremost down a precipice and was never seen again. So he too, like the others, had been forced against his will to follow the voice that called him. The barber went home whistling and congratulating himself on the escape he had made, described what had happened, and it was noised abroad in the country that the people who had gone away and had never returned had all fallen into that pit. For till when they had never known what had happened to those who had heard the voice and obeyed its call. So they never followed them. Interesting. But when crowds of people went out from the town to examine the ill-fated pit that had swallowed up such numbers, and yet never seemed to be full, they could discover nothing. All that they could see was a vast plain that looked as if it had been there since the beginning of the world. And from that time, the people of the country began to die like ordinary mortals all the world over. Ooh, spooky stories. I should probably rename this to dark stories, but maybe folk tales are okay. Oh, and I realized I forgot to update the category to ASMR. Mods, please update the category to ASMR. Oh wait, I don't have mods. Some keyboard ASMR. There we go. Let me just double check that it's updated. Yes, yes, lovely, lovely. All right, I love it when things work out. Let's actually look for, oh, a new book is floating in front of me. German fairy tales. There's quite a big number of them here. Oh no, not 32 minutes, a bit too long. In fact, it says here that Germany is a country with a long and rich tradition in folklore, with stories many know and love. It is the home of beloved fairy tales, with characters such as Rapunzel, Little Red Riding Hood, and others. Germany is also the birthplace of the Brothers Grimm, storytellers who collected fairy tales and folklore from around the country. German fairy tales are perhaps some of the most beloved stories for children and adults. Well, let's see if we find one for children, one for adults. Let's see. How about this? Old Hildenbrand from the Brothers Grimm. Once upon a time lived a peasant and his wife, and the parson of the village had a fancy for the wife, and had wished for a long while to spend the whole day happily with her, and the peasant woman too was quite willing. I don't know what the parson is, I guess some kind of rich, important noble. One day, therefore, he said to the woman, "Listen, my dear friend, I have now thought of a way by which we can do for once spend the whole day happily together. I'll tell you what. On Wednesday, you must take to your bed and tell your husband that you're ill, and if you only complain and act being ill properly, and go on doing so until Sunday, when I have to preach, I will then say in my sermon that whosoever has at home a sick child, a sick husband, a sick wife, a sick father, a sick mother, a sick sister, brother, or whosoever else it may be, and makes a pilgrimage to the Göckerli Hill in Italy, where they can get a peck of laurel leaves for a kreuzer, the sick child, the sick husband, the sick wife, the sick father, or sick mother, the sick sister, or whoever else it may be, will be restored to health immediately." Ooh, spicy. So I guess parson is actually some kind of priest, and he's trying to trick people into going away so he can spend the day with the wife. I wonder how this will go. "I will manage it," said the woman directly. Now therefore on the Wednesday the peasant woman took to her bed, and complained and lamented as agreed on, and her husband did everything for her that he could think of, but nothing did her any good. And then Sunday came, and the woman said, "I fell as ill as if I were going to die at once, but there is one thing I should like to do before my end. I should like to hear the parson's sermon that he is going to preach today." On that day the peasant said, "Ah, my child, do not do it. Thou mightest make thyself worse if thou were to get up. Look, I will go to the sermon, and will attend to it very carefully, and will tell thee everything the parson says." "Well," said the woman, "go then, and pay great attention, and repeat to me all that thou hearest." I like these old German words, "thou hearest." I am probably not pronouncing everything correctly, but I'll do my best. English is not my first language after all. So the peasant went to the sermon, and the parson began to preach and said, if anyone had at home a sick child, a sick husband, a sick wife, a sick father, a sick mother, a sick sister, brother, or anyone else, would make a pilgrimage to the Göckerli Hill in Italy, where a pack of laurel leaves cost a kreuzer, and the sick child, the sick husband, sick wife, sick father, sick mother, sick sister, brother, or whoever else might be, would be restored to health instantly, and whosoever wished to undertake the journey was to go to him after the service was over. He would give him the sack for the laurel leaves and the kreuzer. Then no one was more rejoiced than the peasant, and after the service was over, he went at once to the parson, who gave him the bag for the laurel leaves and the kreuzer. After that he went home, and even at the house door he cried, "Hurrah, dear wife! It is now almost the same thing as if thou wert well. The parson has preached today that whosoever had at home a sick child, a sick husband, a sick wife, a sick father, a sick mother, a sick sister, brother, or whoever it might be, and would make a pilgrimage to the Göckerli Hill in Italy, where a pack of laurel leaves costs a kreuzer, the sick child, sick husband, sick wife, sick father, sick mother, sick sister, brother, or whoever else it was, would be cured immediately. And now I have already got the bag and the kreutzer from the parson, and will at once begin my journey, so that thou mayest get well the faster. And thereupon he went away. He was, however, hardly gone before the woman got up, and the parson was there directly. Oh my! But now we will leave these two for a while and follow the peasant, who walked on quickly without stopping, in order to get the sooner to the Göckerli hill, and on his way he met his gossip. His gossip was an egg merchant, and was just coming from the market, where he had sold his eggs. May you be blessed, said the gossip. Where are you off to so fast? To all eternity, my friend, said the peasant. My wife is ill, and I had been today to hear the parson's sermon, and he preached that if anyone had in his house a sick child, oh, not this again, a sick child, a sick husband, a sick wife, a sick father, a sick mother, a sick sister, brother, or anyone else, and made a pilgrimage to the Göckerli hill in Italy, where a pack of laurel leaves costs a kreutzer, the sick child, the sick husband, the sick wife, the sick father, the sick mother, the sick husband. Oh, I got confused. The sick husband, the sick wife, the sick father, the sick mother, the sick sister, brother, or whosoever else it was, would be cured immediately. And I have got the bag for the laurel leaves and the kreutzer for the parson. Now I'm beginning my pilgrimage. Okay, I need a sip of water after all that sick father thing. Remember to stay hydrated, chat. Okay. But listen, gossip, said the egg merchant to the peasant. Are you then stupid enough to believe such a thing as that? Don't you know what it means? The parson wants to spend the whole day alone with your wife in peace, so he has given you this job to do, to get you out of the way. My word, said the peasant. How'd I like to know if that's true? Come then, said the gossip, I'll tell you what to do. Get into my egg basket, and I will carry you home. And then you will see for yourself. So that was settled, and the gossip put the peasant into his egg basket and carried him home. How big is this basket? Come on. How strong is this gossip? Okay. When they got to the house, hurrah! But all was going merrily there. The woman had already had nearly everything killed that was in the farmyard, and had made pancakes, and the parson was there, and had brought his fiddle with him. The gossip knocked at the door, and the woman asked who was there. It is I, gossip, said the egg merchant. Give me shelter this night. I have not sold my eggs as the market, so now I have to carry them home again, and they are so heavy that I shall never be able to do it, for it is dark already. Indeed, my friend, said the woman, thou comest at a very inconvenient time for me, but as thou art here, it can't be helped. Come in and take a seat there at the bench by the stove. Then she placed the gossip and the basket, which he carried on his back, on the bench by the stove. The parson, however, and the woman were as merry as possible. At length the parson said, Listen, my dear friend, thou canst sing beautifully. Sing something to me. Oh, said the woman, I cannot sing now. In my young days, indeed, I could sing well enough, but that's all over now. Come, said the parson once more, do sing me little song. On that the woman began and sang, I've sent my husband away from me to the Caccoli Hill in Italy. Sorry, I did my best. Thereupon the parson sang, I wish 'twas a year before he came back. I never asked him for the laurel leaf sack. Hallelujah. Then the gossip, who was in the background, began to sing. But I ought to tell that the peasant was called Hildebrand, so the gossip sang, What art thou doing, my dear Hildebrand dear? There on the bench by the stove so near, Hallelujah. And then the peasant sang from his basket, All singing I shall hate from this day, and here in the basket no longer I'll stay. Hallelujah. And he got out of the basket and cudgeled the parson out of the house. The end. Okay, so this one wasn't as dark as much as funny, but man, I think this is my favorite so far. Like, it didn't say it outright, but you can imagine what the wife and the parson were doing before they were caught. Like, by the time the gossip arrived, she was already making pancakes. So, yeah, it's not nice to cheat. Let's see, one more German fairy tale. Fundevogel. I forgot, like there's F, but there was also V that is pronounced as F, right? So Fundevogel? Fundevogel by the brothers Grimm. There was once a forester who went into the forest to hunt, and as he entered it, he heard a sound of screaming, as if a little child were there. He followed the sound, and at last came to a high tree, and at the top of this was a little child was sitting, for the mother had fallen asleep under the tree with the child, and the bird of prey had seen it in her arms, had flown down, snatched it away, and set it on the high tree. Okay, I think we are back to dark. The forester climbed up, brought the child down, and thought so himself, You will take him home with you, and bring him up with your Lena. He took it home, therefore, and the two children grew up together. The one, however, which he had found on a tree was called Fundevogel, because a bird had carried it away. Fundevogel and Lena loved each other so dearly that when they did not see each other they were sad. The forester, however, had an old cook, who one evening took 2 pails and began to fetch water, and did not go once only, but many times, out to the spring. Lena saw this and said, Hark you, old Sana, why are you fetching so much water? Speaking of water, I'm going to take another sip. Okay. If you will never repeat it to anyone, I will tell you why. So Lena said, No, she would never repeat it to anyone. And then the cook said, Early tomorrow morning, when the forester is out hunting, I will heat the water, and when it is boiling in the kettle, I will throw in Fundevogel and will boil him in it. Jesus. And the next morning the forester got up and went out hunting, and when he was gone the children were still in bed. Then Lena said to Fundevogel, If you will never leave me, I too will never leave you. Fundevogel said, "Neither now nor ever will I leave you." Then said Lena, "Then I will tell you. Last night, old Sana carried so many buckets of water to the house that I asked her why she was doing that, and she said that if I would promise not to tell anyone, she would tell me, and said I would be sure not to tell anyone. And she said that early tomorrow morning, when the father was out hunting, she would set on the kettle full of water, throw you into it, and boil you. But we will get up quickly, dress ourselves, and go away together." The two children therefore got up, dressed themselves quickly, and went away. When the water in the kettle was boiling, the cook went into the bedroom to fetch Fundevogel and throw him into it. But when she came in, where did the music go? Oh, there it is. Where was I? But when she came in and went to the beds, both the children were gone. Then she was terribly alarmed, and she said to herself, "What shall I now say when the forester comes home and sees that the children are gone? They must be followed instantly and to get them back again." Then the cook sent 3 servants after them, who were to run and overtake the children. The children, however, were sitting outside the forest, and when they saw from afar the 3 servants running, Lena said to Fundevogel, "Never leave me, and I will never leave you." Fundevogel said, "Neither now nor ever." Then said Lena, "Do you ever become a rose tree, and I, the rose upon it?" When the 3 servants came to the forest, nothing was there but a rose tree, and 1 rose on it, but the children were nowhere. Then said they, "There is nothing to be done here," and they went home and told the cook that they had seen nothing in the forest but a little rose bush with 1 rose on it. Then the old cook scolded and said, "You simpletons! You should have cut the rose bush in 2 and broken off the rose and brought it home with you. Go and do it at once." They had therefore to go out and look for a second time. The children, however, saw them coming from a distance. Then Lena said, "Fundevogel, never leave me, and I will never leave thee." Fundevogel said, "Neither now nor ever." Said Lena, "Then you become a church, and I'll be the chandelier in it." So basically they are shapeshifters, just like I am. Very fitting. So when the 3 servants came, nothing was there but a church, with a chandelier in it. They said therefore to each other, "What can we do here? Let us go home." Sorry, that was a bit loud. When they got home, the cook asked if they had not found them. So they said no, they had found nothing but the church, and that there was a chandelier in it. And the cook scolded them and said, "You fools! Why did you not pull the church to pieces and bring the chandelier home with you?" Now the cook herself got on her legs and went with the 3 servants in pursuit of the children. The children, however, saw from afar that the 3 servants were coming, and the cook waddling after them. Then said Lena, "Fundevogel, never leave me, and I will never leave thee." Then said Fundevogel, "Neither now nor never." Said Lena, "Be a fish pond, and I will be the duck upon it." The cook, however, came up to them, and when she saw the pond, she lay down by it, and was about to drink it up. But the duck swam quickly to her, seized her head in its beak, and drew her into the water where the old witch had to drown. Then the children went home together and were heartily delighted, and if they are not dead, they are living still. The end. Okay, wow. So I really like this story. Like it was pretty touching and romantic, like how uh, Lena and Fundevogel were so in love that they had these magical powers where they could disguise themselves as, nature or different objects. And it's interesting how throughout the story they just call her the old cook, but by the end it just straight up says it, yeah, it's a witch, because who else would want to boil and eat a child but a witch? So, yeah, good thing this one had a happy ending, but I imagine there are many out there that are not so. Uh, let's just say they don't end so well for the heroes. Alright, I think this is a good time to take a bit of a break. I'm going to continue when we come back with some Hungarian and Japanese fairy tales, so stay tuned for that. And if you have to go now, don't worry. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and yeah, take care out there. And if you're still here when I come back, we shall continue. No, I'm yeah, no, mother, I'm just taking a short break, but I'll be back. But just wanted to say, those who want to leave, um, you know, see you next time. Yeah, yeah, don't worry. Just gonna go to the BRB screen real quick. Um, there we go. Thank you, thank you. And let's make sure it's not too loud. Oh, hello, I am back. Thank you for waiting. So I got myself some nice green tea and a snack for later. And how about we continue with some Japanese folk tales, a place where green tea is very popular. Let me actually get a sip. Thank you, thank you. You know, if I keep on doing these ASMR streams, I will probably specialize in soft speaking, story reading stuff. But some people do enjoy like these random sounds like the sip of water or tea, or maybe later you will get to hear me uh, eat some cottage cheese. But you know, I'm gonna give a warning before that. I don't want to gross people out. I know some people don't like to hear eating sounds, but yeah. Okay. Let's see which one. Oh, this is, I think, a pretty popular one, but oh, there we go. I think this should be very interesting. I'm going into all of these blindly, as we have found some of these stories are funny, some of these are dark. Like we had witches, we had demons, we had cheating wives, we had all kinds of stories, we had serial killers. It I hope these Japanese storytales will be more on the bright side, but we'll see. Okay, this one is called The Fox and the Badger, William Elliot Griffiths. So I guess in many cases the name here isn't like the original author, but maybe the person who collected the fairy tale or translated it into English. Let's see. There is a certain mountainous district in Shikoku in which a skillful hunter had trapped or shot so many foxes and badgers that only a few were left. These were Old Grey Badger and a female fox with one cub. Though hard pressed by hunger, neither dared to touch a loose piece of food, lest a trap might be hidden under it. Indeed, they scarcely stirred out of their holes except at night, lest the hunter's arrow should strike them. At last, the two animals held a council together to decide what to do, whether to emigrate or to attempt to outwit their enemy. They thought a long while, when finally the badger, having hit upon a good plan, cried out, "I have it! Do you transform yourself into... No, this is not the question. Do transform yourself into a man. I'll pretend to be dead. Then you can bind me up and sell me in the town. With the money paid, you can buy some food. Then I'll get loose and come back. The next week, I'll sell you and you can escape." Your show, your show. Good, good, cried both together. It's a capital plan, said Mrs. Fox. Yosh, yosh. I like that. So the fox changed herself into a human form. Hey, just like me. And the badger, pretending to be dead, was tied up with straw ropes. Slinging him over her shoulder, the fox went to town, sold the badger, and buying a lot of tofu and one or two chickens, made a feast. By this time, the badger had got loose, for the man to whom he was sold, thinking him dead, had not watched him carefully. So scampering away to the mountains, he met the fox, who congratulated him, while both feasted merrily. The next week, the badger took human form, and going to town sold the fox, who had believed to be dead. But the badger, being an old skinflint and very greedy, wanted all the money and food for himself. So he whispered in the man's ear to watch the fox, well, as she was only feigning to be dead. So the man, taking up a club, gave the fox a blow on the head, which finished her. The badger, buying a good dinner, ate it all himself and licked its chops, never even thinking of the fox's cub. Wow, what a traitor. The cub, after waiting a long time for its mother to come back, suspected foul play and resolved on revenge. So going to the badger, he challenged him to a trial of skill in the art of transformation. The badger accepted right off, for he despised the cub and wished to be rid of him. Well, what do you want to do first? Said Sir Badger. I propose that you go and stand on the big bridge leading to the city, said the cub, and wait for my appearance. I shall come in splendid garments and with many followers in my train. If you recognize me, you win. And if I lose, if you fail, and I lose, and if you fail, I win. Sorry, I misread that. So the badger went and waited behind a tree. Soon a daimyo riding in a palanquin. Daimyo is, I believe, some kind of noble leader. Riding in a palanquin, and a splendid retinue of courtiers appeared coming up to the road. Thinking this was the fox cub changed into a nobleman, although wondering at the skill of the young fox, the badger went up to the palanquin and told the person inside that he was recognized and had lost the game. What? Said the daimyo's followers, who were real men and surrounding the badger. They beat him to death. The fox cub, who was looking on from a hill nearby, laughed and in derision, and glad that the treachery was punished, scampered away. Wow, what a story! Like it was dark, but in a way, I guess it had a happy ending because the fox cub managed to avenge his mother. Was it a he? Who was looking left? Oh, that doesn't really matter. All that matters is that the badger and fox, who were both shapeshifters, decided to do a trick in order to get some food, but then the badger, yeah, betrayed the fox and had her killed. And then when the fox's cub found out, uh, he tricked the badger into getting himself killed. So yeah, very interesting. You know what? In honor of that, before we move on to the next story, let's see. In honor of the Japanese folklore and the just give me a second here. I shall revert to my true form for this. Let's see, hopefully this works. Oh. Okay, how about now? Well, it looks like I can't shape. This is embarrassing. Looks like I can't change back to my old form. Maybe I need to. Let's see if I go here. And I go here. Ah, there we go. I had to refresh the browser source. Great. I'm still new to streaming, and I suppose tech issues are bound to happen from time to time, but yeah, let me just go here. And yeah, I can still read even in Fox forms, so let's just see if we can have this book right here. And let's continue with our folk tales or fairy tales, whatever you want to call it. Let's find another Japanese one. I like the name of this one, Moon Maiden. Let's see how long this one is. Okay, not too long. There we go, much better. All right. So, the Moon Maiden, Green Willow, and other Japanese fairy tales. So this is from like a collection of different stories. There was an old bamboo cutter called Taketori. He was an honest old man, very poor and hard-working, and he lived with his good old wife in a cottage on the hills. Children they had none, and little comfort in their old age, poor souls. Uh-oh, old people with no children. We know how that went in the Romanian folk tales. Let's see how the Japanese handle it. Taketori rose early upon a summer morning and went forth to cut bamboos as was his wont, for he sold them for a fair price in the town, and thus he gained his humble living. Up the steep hillside he went, and came to the bamboo grove, quite wearied out, and he took his blue tenegui, sorry, I haven't seen this word before, but I think with Japanese pronunciation it would be tenegui, and wiped his forehead. Alack for my old bones, he said. I am not so young as I once was, nor the good wife either, and there is no chick nor child to help us in our old age. More's the pity. He sighed as he got to work, poor Taketori. Soon he saw the bright light shining among the green stems of bamboos. What is this? Said Taketori, for as a rule it was dim and shady enough in the bamboo grove. Is it the sun? Said Taketori. No, that cannot well be, for it comes from the ground. Very soon he pushed his way through the bamboo stems to see what the bright light came from. Sure enough, it came from the roof of a great big green bamboo. Taketori took his axe and cut down the great big bamboo. Taketori took his axe and cut down the great big bamboo, and there was a fine shining green jewel the size of his two fists. Wonder of wonders, cried Taketori. Wonder of wonders! For 35 years I've cut the bamboo. This is the very first time I found a great big green jewel at the root of one of them. With that, he takes up the jewel in his hands, and as soon as he does that, it bursts into with a loud noise, if you'll believe it, and out of it came a young person and stood on Taketori's hand. You must understand that the young person was small, but very beautiful. She was dressed all in green silk. Mercy me, said Taketori. Thank you kindly, I suppose now you'll be a fairy, he says, if I'm not making too bold in asking. You're right, she says. It's a fairy I am, and I'm come to live with you and your good wife for a little. Well now, says Taketori, begging your pardon, we are very poor. Our cottage is good enough, but I'm afraid there'd be no comforts for a lady like you. Where's the big green jewel? Says the fairy. Taketori picks up the two halves. Why, it's full of gold pieces, he says. That will do to go on with, says the fairy. And now, Taketori, let us make for home. Home they went. Wife, wife, cried Taketori, here's a fairy to come to live with us. And she was brought us a shining jewel as a big persimmon, full of gold pieces. I don't know if I like where this is going. Fairies are known to be tricksters throughout stories, so for now this looks too good to be true. We'll see where this goes. I'm keeping the suspenseful music for this, yeah. The good wife came running to the door. She could hardly believe her eyes. What is this? She said, about a persimmon and the gold pieces. Persimmons I have seen often enough. Moreover, it is the season, but gold pieces are hard to come by. Let be, woman, said Taketori. You are dull. And he brought the fairy into the house. Wow, kind of rude to his wife. Wondrous fast the fairy grew. Before many days were gone, she was a fine tall maiden, as fresh and as fair as the morning, as bright as the noonday, as sweet and still as the evening, and as deep as the night. Taketori called her the Lady Beaming Bright, because she had come out of the shining jewel. Taketori had the gold pieces out of the jewel every day. He grew rich and spent his money like a man, but there was always plenty and to spare. He built him a fine house. He had servants to wait on him. The Lady Beaming Bright was lodged like an empress. Her beauty was framed both near and far, and scores of lovers came to seek her hand. But she would have none of them. Taketori and the dear good wife are my true lovers, she said. I will live with them and be their daughter. So 3 happy years went by, and in the third year the Mikado himself came to woo the Lady Beaming Bright. He was the brave lover indeed. Lady, he said, I bow before you, my soul salutes you. Sweet lady, be my queen. Then the Lady Beaming Bright sighed, and great tears stood in her eyes, and she hid her face with her sleeve. Lord, I cannot, she said. Cannot, said the Mikado. And why not, O dear Lady Beaming Bright? Wait and see, Lord, she said. Now about the 7th month she grew very sorrowful, and would go abroad no more, but was for long upon the garden gallery of Taketori's house. There she sat in the daytime and brooded. There she sat at night and gazed upon the moon and the stars. There she was one fine night when the moon was at its full. Her maidens were with her, and Taketori and the good wife and the Mikado, her brave lover. How bright the moon shines, said Taketori. Truly, said the good wife, it is like the brass saucepan well scoured. See how pale and wan it is, said the Mikado. It is like a sad, despairing lover. How long and bright a beam, quoth Taketori. It is like a highway from the moon reaching to this garden gallery. Oh, dear foster father, cried the Lady Beaming Bright. You speak the truth. It is a highway indeed. and along the highway come countless heavenly beings, swiftly, swiftly to bear me home. My father is the king of the moon. I disobeyed his behest. He sent me to earth 3 years to dwell in exile. The 3 years are past, and I go to mine own country. Ah, I am sad at parting. The mist descends, said Taketori. Nay, said the Mikado, it is the cohorts of the king of the moon. Down they came, in their hundreds and in their thousands, bearing torches. Silently they came, and lighted around the garden gallery. The chief among them brought a heavenly feather robe. Up rose the lady beaming bright, and put the robe upon her. Farewell, Taketori, she said. Farewell, dear foster mother. I leave you, my jewel, for a remembrance. As for you, my lord, I would you might come with me, but there is no feather robe for you. I leave you a phial of the pure elixir of life. Drink, my lord, and be even as the immortals. Then she spread her bright wings, and the cohorts of heaven closed about her. Together they passed up the highway to the moon, and were seen no more. The Mikado took the elixir in his hand, and he went to the top of the highest mountain in that country. And he made a great fire to consume the elixir of life, for he said, of what profit shall it be for me to live forever, being parted from the lady beaming bright? So the elixir of life was consumed, and its blue vapor floated up to the heaven. And the Mikado said, let my message float up with the vapor and reach the ears of my lady beaming bright. That was quite lovely. It's kind of all over the place a little bit, like it started as like it looked like the old man and Taketori and his wife would be the protagonist, but then we find out that there is this fairy and she grows up and she was only there for a short while, and then it ends with the Mikado, which I think is like some noble lord. He was given a chance to become immortal, but he didn't want to be immortal and be without his lover, so he just, you know, destroyed the elixir of life. Quite romantic gesture, if you ask me, but yeah, we can notice that it has a very different tone from what we have read so far. So, going to actually switch the music to something else again. Maybe, just maybe, we'll be lucky enough to find some more wholesome or upbeat stories. Okay. Maybe I'll just change the mood of the background music depending on the story that I finish. So, yeah. Let's move on to. Just take another sip of tea first. Lovely. Let's move on now to Hungarian folk tales. Again, these are still translated all to English, and they seem to all be collected by certain foreign authors. So if I read the author, then and we wonder why it doesn't sound Hungarian, Romanian, that's because they are not really the person who wrote it, but the person who collected and probably translated it as well. So this one is actually called Lovely Ilonka by Andrew Lang's Fairy Books. Ilonka is a very common Hungarian name, for women at least. Okay, let's see. Is it going to be cheerful or dark? I wonder. What do you guys think? Either way, I will do my best to read it in a calm, serene, relaxing manner. There was once a king's son who told his father that he wished to marry. No, no, said the king. You must not be in such a hurry. Wait till you have done some great deed. My father did not let me marry till I had won the golden sword you see me wear. The prince was much disappointed, but he never dreamed of disobeying his father, and he began to think with all of his might what he could do. It was no use staying at home, so one day he wandered out into the world to try his luck. And as he walked along, he came to a little hut in front, in which he found an old woman crouching over fire. Good evening, mother. I see you have lived long in this world. Do you know anything about the three bulrushes? Yes, indeed. I've lived long and been much about in the world, but I've never seen or heard anything of what you ask. Still, if you want to wait till tomorrow, I may be able to tell you something. How much you guys want to bet that this is going to be a witch or some kind of other sorceress, like old woman in a fairy tale? Come on. Well, he waited till the morning, and quite early the old woman appeared and took out a little pipe and blew in it. And in a moment all the crows in the world were flying about her. Hey, it's you, mother. um, Not one was missing. Then she asked if they knew anything about the three bulrushes, but not one of them did. The prince went on his way, and a little further on he found another hut in which lived an old man. On being questioned, the old man said he knew nothing, but begged the prince to stay overnight, and the next morning the old man called all the ravens together, but they too had nothing to tell. Okay, what's gonna be the next bird, I wonder? The prince bade him farewell and set out. He wandered so far that he crossed 7 kingdoms, and at last, one evening, he came to a little house in which was an old woman. Good evening, dear mother, said he politely. Good evening to you, my dearest son, answered the old woman. It is lucky for you that you spoke to me, or you would have met with a horrible death. But may I ask, where are you going? I am seeking the 3 bulrushes. Do you know anything about them? I don't know anything myself, but wait till tomorrow, perhaps I can tell you then. So the next morning she blew on her pipe, and lo and behold, every magpie in the world flew up. That is to say, all the magpies except one who had broken a leg and a wing. The old woman sent after it at once, and when she questioned the magpies, the crippled one was the only one who knew where the 3 bulrushes were. Then the prince started off with the lame magpie. They went on and on until they reached a great stone wall, many, many feet high. Now, prince, said the magpie, the 3 bulrushes are behind that wall. The prince wasted no time. He set his horse at the wall and leaped over it. Then he looked after for the 3 bulrushes, pulled them up, and set off with them on his way home. As he rode along, one of the bulrushes happened to knock against something. It split open, and only think, out sprang a lovely girl who said, "My heart's love, you are mine and I am yours. Do give me a glass of water." Speaking of water, time to hydrate again. It's quite fascinating how, even though we are like in a different country now, it oftentimes seems like there's a part of the story where a person or some magical creature comes out of an object, like it cracks open and whoa, suddenly there's a person. Interesting. But how could the prince give it to her when there was no water at hand? So the lovely maiden flew away. He split the second bulrush as an experiment, and just the same thing happened. How careful was he of the third bulrush? He waited till he came to a well, and there he split it open, and out sprang a maiden 7 times lovelier than either of the others, and she too said, "My heart's love, I am yours and you are mine. Do give me a glass of water." This time the water was ready, and the girl did not fly away, but she and the prince promised to love each other always. Then they set out for home. They soon reached the prince's country, and as he wished to bring his promised bride back in a fine coach, he went on to the town to fetch one. In the field there where the well was, the king's swineherds and cowherds were feeding their droves, and the prince left Ilonka, for that was her name, in their care. Unluckily, the chief swineherd had an ugly old daughter, and whilst the prince was away, he dressed her up in fine clothes and threw Ilonka into the well. Okay, this is getting dark again. The prince returned before long, bringing with him his father and a mother and a great train of courtiers to escort Ilonka home. But how they all stared when they saw the swineherd's ugly daughter. However, there was nothing for it but to take her home, and 2 days later the prince married her, and his father gave up the crown to him. But he had no peace. He knew very well that he had been cheated, though he could not think how. Once he desired to have some water brought him from the well into which Ilonka had been thrown. The coachman went for it, and in the bucket he pulled up a pretty little duck was swimming. He looked wonderingly at it, and all of a sudden it disappeared, and he found a dirty-looking girl standing near him. The girl returned with him and managed to get a place as a housemaid in the palace. Of course, she was very busy all day long, but whenever she had a little spare time, she sat down to spin. Her distaff turned of itself, and her spindle span by itself, and the flax wound itself off. And however much she might use, there was always plenty left. When the queen, or rather the swineherd's daughter, heard of this, she very much wished to have the distaff, but the girl flatly refused to give it to her. However, at last she consented on condition that she might sleep one night in the king's room. The queen was very angry and scolded her well, but as she longed to have the distaff to the okay, sorry, let me read that again. The queen was very angry and scolded her well, but as she longed to have the distaff she consented, though she gave the king a sleeping draught at supper. Okay, I see. So she knows what's going on and doesn't want her husband to get into any funny business. Then the girl went to the king's room, looking 7 times lovelier than ever. She bent over the sleeper and said, "My heart's love, I am yours and you are mine. Speak to me but once, I am your Ilonka." But the king was so sound asleep, he neither heard nor spoke, and Ilonka left the room, sadly thinking he was ashamed to own her. Soon after, the queen again sent to say that she wanted to buy the spindle. The girl agreed to let her have it on the same conditions as before, but this time also the queen took care to give the king a sleeping draught. And once more Ilonka went for the king's room and spoke to him, whisper as sweetly as she might. She could get no answer. Now some of the king's servants had taken note of the matter and warned their master not to eat or drink anything that the queen offered him, as for 2 nights running she had given him a sleeping draught. The queen had no idea that her doings had been discovered, and when a few days later she wanted the flax and had to pay the same price for it, she felt no fears at all. At supper that night, the queen offered the king all sorts of nice things to eat and drink, but he declared that he was not hungry and went early to bed. The queen repented bitterly her promise to the girl, but it was too late to recall it, for Ilonka had already entered the king's room, where he lay anxiously waiting for something, knew not what. All of a sudden, he saw a lovely maiden who bent over him and said, "My dearest love, I am yours, and you are mine. Speak to me, for I am your Ilonka." At these words, the king's heart bounded with him. He sprang up and embraced and kissed her, and she told him all her adventures since the moment he had left her. And when he heard that all of that Ilonka had suffered and how he had been deceived, he vowed he would be revenged. So he gave orders that the swineherd, his wife, and daughter should all be hanged. And so they were. Geez, that really got dark. But I guess they deserved it. So the next day, the king was married, with great rejoicings, to the fair Ilonka, and if they are not yet dead, why, they are still living. It was quite a lovely story. Like, I noticed that there's a lot of randomness in these stories. Like, what was the thing with the whole trying to talk to crows, then ravens to get an answer with the 3 bulrushes, and like, why why were there 3 bulrushes if only the last one was? Well, I guess the moral of the story there that sometimes you won't find your true love and that you need to try again. But let me actually look up what's a bulrush, because it's the first time I heard. So it's a plant that looks like, okay, so it's like a reed, I guess. Okay, interesting. Oh, just needed to go on a tangent a bit because I didn't know what bulrush was, but yeah. Let's do one more story and then we'll have another break. And after the break, I plan on reading more stories, but this time, because I speak all these foreign languages, I'm going to read them in their native language, which should prove quite interesting, hopefully. Let's see. Well, this is a bit long. Oh, 25 minutes. No. Okay, let's try our luck with this one. Let me just sip on some tea first. Okay. The Twin Hunchbacks, Baroness Orczy. Once upon a time, long, very long ago, in the midst of fairyland, there stood an extensive forest, so large that it would take many, many days to walk across it. In fact, it was an enchanted forest, for all night it was the haunt of all the little fairies in the neighborhood. They would skip and dance there all night long and far into the next day. But the moment the noonday sun streamed down upon them, they would all run away and go to bed inside the water lilies and pink lotus and leave fairy rings on the grass to mark the place of their nightly revels. I believe there is a real thing called fairy rings, which is like a mushroom ring in the grass. I need to look this up real quick. Have some keyboard ASMR. Fairy rings. Yeah, there it is. Fairy ring, also known as fairy circle, elf ring, or pixie ring, is a naturally occurring ring of arc of mushrooms. Okay, so I was right. I knew that the name came from somewhere, and apparently it's from folktale. Okay. There was a lovely glade in the forest, with a large pond in the middle and tall dark trees around, which was a specially favored spot with all the fairies and elves of the forests. Three little fairies particularly there were, who used to come here every morning at sunrise and enjoy themselves to their heart's content. They were especially fond of a dance they had invented, which consisted in holding hands and twirling round, singing all the while, Humpty Dumpty, Humpty Dumpty. One day, a little hunchback woodcutter who was out very early in the morning gathering chopsticks, suddenly came upon the lovely glade, and there, before him, he saw the three little fairies dancing in a ring, laughing and singing Humpty Dumpty, Humpty Dumpty, so merrily that he threw down his bundle of faggots, faggots and joined in their dance and their song with great energy. Okay, I know it's not doesn't mean that thing that I'm thinking of. What's the actual? Okay, so meatball made of minced of God. Okay. Okay, I see. Okay. It's pretty strange because it seems to be of English origin, and with the pig's ring and elf ring, I wonder what makes this particularly, and Humpty Dumpty, wonder what makes this particularly Hungarian, but we shall see. Um, he danced so amazingly and amused them so much by turning back somersaults that they thought it the greatest pity in the world that so brisk a little man should be spoiled by having a great hump on his back. So they took some water from the pond in little golden cups, and each fairy emptied her own tiny vessel on the hunchback, singing the while, Go away, ugly hump. This reminds me to stretch a bit because if I'm not careful by the way I sit, I will too have a hump on my back. Okay, there we go. Big stretch and a little sip of tea. Then they again joined hands and danced around till his hunch had quite disappeared, whereupon he romped more gaily than before, and was so glad and merry that he could hardly sing Humpty Dumpty any more for laughing. After that he kissed each of the fairies, and ran home as fast as his little legs could carry him, singing all the way, Humpty Dumpty, Humpty Dumpty, springing in the air and jumping over every obstacle. So glad that he had that so glad was he to have got rid of his ugly hump. Now his little hunchback had a twin brother just as ugly and deformed as he had been himself, and when the now straightened little man came in at the cottage door, his brother was very much astonished to see him skipping about without his hunch, and he naturally asked how he managed to get rid of his ugly deformity. "Oh, said the woodcutter, "it happened in a very curious way. I was out chopping sticks very early this morning in the woods, and when I suddenly saw three dear little fairies before me dancing in a ring and singing Humpty Dumpty, Humpty Dumpty, they were tripping it so merrily that the desire seized me to join in their dance. So I boldly took them by the hand and joined in the ring, singing with them, Humpty Dumpty, Humpty Dumpty. They seemed to like this very much, for when they got tired of dancing, they took some water from the pond, and pouring it over my back, they sang, go away, ugly hunch. And sure enough, my ugly hunch was gone. The twin brother was very much surprised at the strange story he had just heard. Naturally enough, he did not quite care about being known as the hunchback woodcutter, whilst his brother looked so erect and handsome. Erect and handsome. In fact, he was not only jealous of his brother, but most anxious to be good looking. He therefore thought the best plan would be at once to seek out the fairies and get them to be as kind and as useful to him as they had been to his brother. Oh, I feel like this is not going to end well for him. He therefore started off at a run for the enchanted glade, determined to get rid of his hump, as his brother had done. Unfortunately, he was so afraid of being too late that he ran himself quite out of breath, and was tired by the time he reached the three little fairies, who were dancing and singing as gaily as ever. The poor little fellow could neither sing nor dance, and had not sufficient breath left to cut a caper or turn back somersault. This disappointed the little fairies very much. Presently they all joined hands, taking the little hunchback with them, and began their special dance, singing Humpty Dumpty, Humpty Dumpty. But he got so confused and giddy from turning round so fast that instead of singing Humpty Dumpty, Humpty Dumpty, as the little fairies said, he would add, in his efforts to please them, Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, and kept on saying, sat on the wall, sat on the wall, which so annoyed the fairies that when they took the water out of the pond in their little golden cups and poured it over his back, instead of singing go away, ugly hump, they said, hunch, get twice as big as before, which it did immediately, and was then such a terrible size that it was so frightful to look at, and so heavy that he had to crawl on his hands and knees all the way home. The end. Okay, so this again got a little dark. Like, I often notice that in these stories where the hero has the stroke of luck, and then, like, not necessarily the villain, but their friend or anti hero, they try to have the same fortune, but they end up messing it up. And the same happened with his twin brother here, I suppose, where he angered the fairies and they made his hump even bigger. So the moral of the story, don't displease the fairies. You never know what might happen. Alright, and with this we actually reached the end of this segment. I'm going to take another quick break, and I'm going to set up the next stories here. And these are going to be in their native language, which some of you will probably not understand, but hopefully, like, I like to think that even listening into a foreign language, even if you can't understand it, you still find some pleasure, some amusement from it at least. So yeah, I'm going to take my little break here and yeah, hopefully see you guys again soon. Right, and I'm back. So, I hope you guys are having a lovely day. Thank you again for tuning in. We shall continue with the last part of the stream, in which I read some folk tales, fairy tales, this time in their native language. So this goes out to all my Romanian friends in chat. This one is called Tinerețe fără bătrânețe și viață fără de moarte, de Petre Ispirescu. A fost odată că niciodată, câte n-ar fi, nu s-ar mai povesti, de când făcea plopșorul pere și răchita micșunele, de când se băteau urșii în coade, de când se lau de gât lupii cum ei de se săruteau, înfrățindu-se, de când se potcovea puricele la un picior, cu 99 de oca de fier, și s-ar arunca în slava cerului, de nu se aducea povești. De când se scria musca cu părete, mai mincinos cine nu crede. A fost odată un împărat mare și o împărăteasă, amândoi tineri și frumoși, și voind să aibă copii, a făcut de mai multe ori tot ce trebuia să facă pentru aceasta. A îmblat pe la vraci și filozofi ca să caute la stele și să le ghicească dacă or să facă copii, dar în zadar. În sfârșit, auzind împăratul că este la un sat aproape, un urchiaș tibaci a trimis să-l cheme. Dar el răspunse trimișilor că cine are trebuință să vină la dânsul. S-au sculat deci împăratul și împărăteasa și luând cu dânsii vreo câțiva boieri mari, ostași și slujitori, s-au dus la unchiaș acasă. Unchiașul, cum i-a văzut de departe, a ieșit să-i întâmpine și totodată le-a zis: Bine ați venit sănătoși, dar ce îmbli, împărate, să afli? Dorința ce ai o să-ți aducă întristare. Eu nu am venit să te întreb asta, zise împăratul, ci dacă ai ceva leacuri care să ne facă să avem copii, să-mi dai. Am, răspunse unchiașul, dar numai un copil o să faceți. El o să fie făt frumos și drăgăstos și parte nu o să aveți de el. Luând împăratul și împărăteasa leacurile, s-au întors vesel la palat și peste câteva zile împărăteasa s-a simțit însărcinată. Toată împărăția și toată curtea și toți slujitorii s-au veselit de această întâmplare. Mai înainte de a veni ceasul nașterii, copilul se puse pe un plâns de n-a putut niciun vraci să-l împace. Atunci împăratul a început să-i făgăduiască toate bunurile din lume, dar nici așa n-a fost cu putință să-l facă să tacă. Taci, dragul tate, îi zice împăratul, că ți-o dai împărăția cu tare sau cu tare, taci, fiule, că ți-o-i da soție pe cutare sau cutare, fată de împărat și alte multe de alte astea și în sfârșit, dacă văzu că nu tace, îi mai zise și taci, fătul meu, că ți-o-i da tinerețe fără bătrânețe și viață fără de moarte. Atunci copilul tăcu și se născu. ca slujitorii de teră în tâmpine și în surle și în toată împărăția se ținu veselie mare o săptămână întreagă. De ce creștea copilul? De aceea se făcea mai isteț și mai îndrăzneț. Îl deteră pe la școli și filosofi și toate învățăturile pe care alți copii le învață într-un an, el le învăța într-o lună, astfel încât împăratul murea și învia de bucurie. Toată împărăția se fălea că o să aibă un împărat înțelept și procopsit ca Solomon împărat. De la o vreme încoace însă, nu știu ce avea, că era tot galeș, trist și dus pe gânduri. Dar când fuse într-o zi, tocmai când copilul împlinea 15 ani și împăratul se afla la o masă cu toți boierii și slujbașii împărăției și se chefteiau, se sculă făt frumos și zice: Tată, a venit vremea să-mi dai ceea ce mi-o făgătuist la naștere. Auzind aceasta, împăratul s-a întristat și foarte și i-a zis: Da, bine, fiule, de unde pot eu să-ți dau un astfel de lucru nemai auzit? Și dacă ți-am făgăduit atunci, a fost numai ca să te împac. Dacă tu, tată, nu poți să-mi dai, apoi sunt nevoit să cutreier toată lumea până ce voi găsi făgăduința care m-am născut. Atunci toți boierii și împăratul deteră în genunchi cu rugăciune să nu părăsească împărăția, fiindcă ziceau boierii: Tatăl tău de aici înainte e bătrân și o să te ridicăm pe tine în scaun și avem să-ți aducem cea mai frumoasă împărăteasă de sub soare, de soție. Dar n-a fost putință să-l întoarcă din hotărârea sa, rămânând statornic ca o piatră în vorbele lui. Iar tatăl său, dacă văzu și văzu, îi dăte voie și puse la cale să-i gătească de drum merinde și tot ce îi trebuia. Apoi, făt frumos se duse în grajdurile împărătești, unde erau cei mai frumoși armăsari din toată împărăția, ca să-și aleagă unul, dar cum punea mâna și apuca pe câte unul de coadă, îl trântea și astfel toți caii căzură. În sfârșit, tocmai când era să iasă, își mai aducă ochii odată prin graș și zărind într-un colț un cal răpciugos și pupos și slab, se duse și la dânsul, iar când puse mâna pe coada lui, el își întoarse capul și zise: Ce poruncești, stăpâne? Mulțumesc lui Dumnezeu că mi-ai ajutat să ajung ca să mai puie mâna pe mine un voinic, scuze-te, accent. Și, înțepenindu-și picioarele, rămase drept ca lumânarea. Atunci făt frumos îi spuse ce vrea de gând să facă și calul îi zise: Ca să ajungi la dorința ta, trebuie să ceri de la tatăl tău paloșul, sulița, arcul, torba cu săgețile și hainele ce le purta el când era flăcău. Iar pe mine să mă îngrijești cu însuți mâna ta 6 săptămâni și orzul să mi-l dai fiert în lapte. Cerând împăratului lucrurile ce îl povățuise calul, el a chemat prevătaful curții și a dat poruncă ca să-i deschiză toate tronurile cu hainele spre a-și alege fiul său pe acelea pe care îl va plăcea. Făt frumos, după ce răscoli 3 zile și 3 nopți, găsi în sfârșit, în fundul unui tron vechi, armele și hainele tatăne său de când era flăcău, dar foarte ruginite. Se apucă însuși cu mâna lui să le curețe de rugină și, după 6 săptămâni, izbuti a face să lucească armele ca oglinda. Totodată îngriji și de cal, precum îi zise el. Destulă muncă a avut, dar fie că izbuti. Când auzi calul de la făt frumos că hainele și armele sunt bine curățate și pregătite, odată ce scutură și el și toate bubele și răpciuga căzură de pe dânsul și rămas întocmai cum îl fătase măsa, un cal gras, trupeș și cu 4 aripi. Văzându-l făt frumos, astfel îi zise: De azi, în 3 zile plecăm. Să trăiești, stăpâne, sunt gata chiar azi de poruncești, îi răspunse calul. Oh, so there's a horse with 4 wings here, interesting. A 3-a zi de dimineață, toată curtea și toată împărăția era plină de jale. Văd frumos, îmbrăcat ca un viteaz, cu palușul în mână, călare pe calul ce-și alesese, își lua ziua bună de la împăratul, de la împărăteasa, de la toți boierii, cei mari și cei mici, de la ostași, de la toți slujitorii curții, care, cu lăcrimile în ochi, îl rugau să se lase de a face călătoria aceasta, ca nu care cumva să meargă la pieirea capului său, dar el, dând pintenii calului, ieși pe poartă cuvântul și dusă dânsul cărale cu merinde, cu bani și vreo 200 de ostași, pe care o rânduise împăratul ca să-l însoțească. It's a bit of a long story, so bear with me. We're about halfway through, I would say. There we go. După ce trecu afară de împărăția tatălui său și ajunse în pustietate, făt frumos își împărți toată vâția pe la ostaș și, luându-și și ziua bună, îi trimise înapoi, oprindu-și pentru dânsul merinde numai cât o putut duce calul. Și apucând calea către răsărit, s-a dus 3 zile și 3 nopți, până ce ajunse la o câmpie întinsă, unde era o mulțime de oase de oameni. Stând să se odihnească, îi zise calul, să știi, stăpâne, că aici suntem pe moșia unei ghionoaie, care e atât de rea, încât nimeni nu calcă pe moșia ei, fără să fie omorât. A fost și ea femeie ca toate femeile, dar blestemul părinților, pe care nu-i asculta, ce îi tot necăjea, a făcut-o să fie o gheonoaie. În clipa aceasta este cu copiii ei, dar mâine, în pădurea ce o vezi, o să întâlnim venindu-se să se prăpădească. E grozavă de mare. Okay, thank you for joining, Azaria. I'm glad you enjoyed them and have a safe drive. I'll see you soon enough. Okay, so where were we? Thank you, thank you. Okay. Ok, să te prăpădească, e grozavă de mare, dar să nu te sperii, ci să fii gata cu arcul ca să o săgetezi, iar palușul și sulița să le ții la îndemână, ca să te slujești cu dânsele când va fi de trebuință. Se deteră spre odihnă, dar pândea când unul, când altul. A doua zi, când se revarse ziorile, ei se pregăteau să treacă pădurea. Văd frumos în șelă și înfrână calul și Kinga o strânse mai mult decât altă dată și porni. Când auzi o ciocănitură groaznică, atunci calul îi zise, ține-te, stăpâne, gata, că iată se apropie Gheonoaia. Și când venea ea, nene doborea copacii. Așa de iute mergea, iar calul se urcă ca vântul până cam deasupra ei și făt frumos îi luă un picior cu săgeată și când era gata a o lovi cu a doua săgeată, strigă ea, stă-i, făt frumos, că nu-ți fac nimic. Și văzând că nu o crede, îi dete înscris cu sângele său. Să-ți trăiască calul, făt frumos, mai zise ea, ca un năzdravăn ce este, căci de nu era el te mâncam fript, acum însă m-ai mâncat tu pe mine. Să știi că până azi niciun muritor n-a cutezat să calce otare mele până aici, câțiva nebuni carii sau încumes a o face, de-abia au ajuns până în câmpia unde ai văzut oasele cele multe. Sorry, these are some old Romanian words, so it's a bit hard for me, so I'm sorry if I butcher your language, guys. Se duseră acasă la dânsa, unde Gheonaie o spătă pe făt frumos și oameni pe care și-l omeni ca pe un călător. Dar pe când se aflau la masă și se chefuiau, iar Gheomaie ghemea de durere, deodată el îi scoase piciorul pe care îl păstra în traistă, îl puse la loc și îndată se vindeca. Piciorul pe care îl păstra în traistă? Ok. Gheonoaia de bucurie ținu masă 3 zile de-a rândul și rugă pe făt frumos să-și aleagă de soție pe una din cele 3 fete ce avea, frumoasă ca niște zâne. El însă nu voi, ci îi spuse curat de ce caută. Atunci ea îi zise, cu calul cu care îl ai și cu vitejia ta, crezi că ai să izbuvești. După 3 zile se pregătire de drum și porni. Merse făt frumos, merse și iar merse, cale lungă și mai lungă. Dar când fu de trecut peste otarele Gheonoaiei, dete de o câmpie frumoasă, pe de-o parte cu iarba îndorită, iar pe de altă parte părlită. Atunci el întreba pe cal, de ce este iarba părlită? Și calul îi răspunse, aici ajunsem pe moșia unei scorpii, soră cu Ghenoaia. Terele ce sunt nu pot să trăiască la un loc. Blestemul părinților le-a ajuns și de-aia s-au făcut lighioi, așa cum le vezi. Vrăjmășia lor e groaznică, nevoie de cap. Vor să-și răpească una de la alta pământ, când scorpia este necăjită rău, varsă foc și smoală. Se vede că a avut vreo ceartă cu soră sa și, fiind să o gonească de pe drumul ei, a părlit iarba pe unde a trecut. Ea este mai rea decât soră sa și are 3 capete. Să ne odihnim puțin, stăpâne, și mâine dis de dimineață să fim gata. A doua zi se pregătiră, ca și când ajunsese la Gheonoaia și porniră. Când auziră un urlet și o văjietură, cum nu mai auziseră ei până atunci. Fii gata, stăpâne, că iată se apropie zgripsoroaica de scorpie. Just taking a sip of water. Scorpia, cu o falcă în cer și cu alta în pământ și vărsând flăcări, se apropie cuvântul de iute. Iacă, iar calul se urcă repede ca săgeata până cam deasupra și se lasă asupra ei cam pe de o parte. Făt frumos, o săgeată îi zbură în cap. Când era să-i mai ia un cap, Scorpia se rugă cu lacrimi ca să o ierte, că nu-i face nimic și, ca să-l încredințeze, îi dete înscriș cu sângele ei. Scorpia o spătă pe făt frumos și mai și decât Gheonoaia. Iar el îi dete și dânsei înapoi capul, ce îl luase cu săgeata, care le se lipi îndată, cum îl puse la loc. Și după 3 zile, plecară mai departe. Ok, interesant că aici nu mai e dialogul, doar descrie că a făcut aceeași chestie și apoi a trecut mai departe. Trecând și peste hotarele Scorpiei, se duseră și iară se mai duseră, până când ce ajunseseră la un câmp numai de flori și unde era numai primăvară. Fiecare floare era cu deosebire de mândră și cu miros dulce de tâmbăta. Trăgea un vântișor care abia adea. Aici stătură ei să se odihnească, iar calul îi zise, trecurăm cum trecurăm până aici, stăpâne, mai avem un hop. Am să dau peste o primejdie mare și dacă ne-a ajutat Dumnezeu să scăpăm și de dânsa, apoi suntem voinici. Mai înainte de aici este palatul unde locuiește tinerețe fără bătrânețe și viață fără de moarte. Această casă este înconjurată cu o pădure deasă și înaltă, unde stau toate fiarele cele mai sălbatice din lume. Ziua și noaptea păzesc cu neadormire și sunt multe foarte. Cu dânsele nu este chip de a te bate, și ca să trecem prin pădure e peste poate. Noi însă să ne silim dacă om putea să sărim pe deasupra. După ce odiniră vreo 2 zile, se pregătire iarăși. Atunci calul, ținându-și răsuflarea, zise: Stăpâne, strânge chinga cât poți de mult și încălecând să te ții bine și în scări și în scări și de coama mea, picioarele să le ții lipite pe lângă subțioara mea, ca să nu mă zăticnești în zborul meu. Se urcă, făcu probă și într-un minut fu aproape de pădure. Stăpâne, mai zise calul, cum e timpul când se dă de mâncare fiarelor pădurei și sunt adunte toate în curte să trecem? Să trecem, răspunse făt frumos, și Dumnezeu să se îndure de noi. Se urcară în sus și văzură palatul strălucind altfel. De la soare te puteai uita, dar la dânsul ba. Trecură pe deasupra pădurii și tocmai când erau să se lasă în jos la scara palatului, de-abia atinse cu piciorul vârful unei copaci și dotodată toată pădurea se puse în mișcare. Urlau dobitoacele, tăti se făcea părul măciucă pe cap. Se grăbire de a se lăsară în jos și de nu era doamna palatului afară, dând de mâncare puilor ei, căci așa numea ea ligionile din pădure, îi prăpădea negreșit. Mai mult de bucurie că au venit, îi scapă ea, căci nu mai văzuse până atunci un suflet de om pe la dânsa. Opri pe dobitoace, le îmblăzi și le trimise la locul lor. Stăpâna era o zână înaltă, subțirică și drăgălasă și frumoasă, nevoie mare. Cum o văzu făt frumos, rămase încremenit. Dar ea, uitându-se cu milă la dânsul, îi zise: Bine ai venit, făt frumos! Ce cauți aici? Căutăm, zise el, tinerețe fără bătrânețe și viață fără de moarte. Dacă cauți ceea ce zisești, aci este. Ok, let's stretch. Atunci descălică și intră în palat. Acolo găsi încă 2 femei, una ca alta de tinere, erau surorile cele mai mari. El începu să mulțumească zânei pentru că l-a scăpat de primejdie, iar ele, de bucurie, gătiră o cină plăcută și numai în vase de aur. Calului îi dete drumul să pască pe unde va voi dânsul. Pe urmă îi făcură cunoscuți tuturor ligioanelor că puteau îmbla în tihnă prin pădure. Femeile îl rugară să locuiască de aici înainte cu dânsele, căci ziceau că li se urâse șezând tot singurele, iar el nu aștepta să-i mai zică odată, ci primi cu toată mulțumirea ca unul ca aceea și căuta. Încet, încet, se deprinseră unii cu alții, îi spuse istoria și ce păți până să ajungă la dânsele. Și nu după multă vreme, se și însoți cu fata cea mai mică. La însoțirea lui, stăpânele casei îi deteră voie să meargă prin toate locurile de împrejur, pe unde va voi, numai pe o cale pe care i-o și arătară, ziseră să nu meargă, căci nu va fi bine de el. Și spuseseră că acea vale se numea Valea Plângerii. Petrecu acolo o vreme uitată, fără a prinde de veste, fiindcă rămăsese tot așa de tânăr, ca și când venise. Trecea prin pădure, fără să doară măcar capul. Se desfăta în palaturile cele aurite, trăia în pace și în liniște cu soția și cumnatele sale, se bucura de frumusețea florilor și de dulceața și curățenia aerului, ca un fericit. Ieșea adesea la vânătoare, dar într-o zi se luă după un iepure, dete o săgeată, dete 2 și nu-l nimeri. Supărat, alergă după el și dete și cu o 3-a săgeată, cu care îl nemeri. Dar nefericitul, în învălmășeală, nu băgase de seamă că alergând după iepure, trecuse în valea plângerii. Luând iepurele, se întoarce acasă. Când, ce să vezi, data? Dumneata, cred că vrea să zică. Deodată îl apucă un dor de tată său și de mumă sa. Nu puteză să spuie femeilor măiestre, iar ele îl cunoscuseră după întristare și de odihna ce vedea în trunsul. Ai trecut, nefericitule, în valea plângerii, îi ziseră ele cu totul speriate. Am trecut, dragele mele, fără ca să fi voit să fac această neghiobie. Și acum mă topesc de a întoarce de dorul părinților mei, însă și de voi nu mă îndur ca să vă părăsesc. Sunt de mai multe zile cu voi și n-am să mă plâng de nicio mâhnire. Mă voi duce, dar să mai văz odată părinții și apoi mă întoarce, ca să nu mă mai duc niciodată. Nu ne părăsi, iubitule, părinții tăi nu mai trăiesc de sute de ani și chiar tu, ducându-te, ne temem că nu te vei mai întoarce. Rămâi cu noi, căci ne zice gândul că vei pieri. Toate rugăciunile celor trei femei, precum și cele și ale calului, n-au fost în stare să-i potolească dorul părinților, care îl usca pe de-a întregul. În cele mai de-a urmă, calul îi zise: dacă nu vrei să mă asculți, stăpâne, orice ți se va întâmpla, să știi că numai tu ești de vină. Am să-ți spui o vorbă și dacă vei primi tocmealea mea, te duc înapoi. Primesc, zise el, cu toată mulțumirea, spune-o. Cum vom ajunge la palatul tatălui tău, să te las jos și eu să mă întorc, de vei voi să rămâi măcar un ceas. Așa să fie, zise el. Se pregătiră de plecare, se îmbrățișară cu femeile și, pe ce-și luară ziua bună, unul de la altul porni, lăsându-le suspinând și cu lacrimile în ochi. Ajunseră în locul unde era moșia Scorpiei. Acolo găsiră orașe, pădurile se schimbaseră în câmpii, întrebând pe unii și pe alții despre Scorpie și locuința ei, dar îi răspunseră că bunilor auziseră de la străbunilor povestindu-se de asemenea fleacuri. Cum se poate una ca asta, le zicea Făt Frumos. Mai alatere am trecut pe aici și spunea tot ce știa. Locuitorii râdea de dânsul, ca de la unul ce aiurează sau visează deștept, iar el, supărat, plecă înainte, fără a băga de seamă că barba și părul îi albise. Ajungând la moșia Gheonoaiei, făcu întrebări și la moșia Scorpiei și primea aceeași răspunsuri. Nu se putea domiri el. Cum de în câteva zile s-au schimbat astfel locurile? Și iar supărat plecă cu barba albă până la brâu, simțindu-i că îi cam tremurau picioarele și ajunsese la împărăția tatăne său. Aici, alți oameni, alte orașe și cele vechi erau schimbate, de nu le mai cunoștea. În cele mai de urmă, ajunse la palaturile în care se născuse. Cum se dete jos, calul îi sărută mâna și îi zise: rămâi sănătos, că eu mă întorc de unde am plecat. Dacă poftești să mergi dumneata, încalecă îndată și aidem. Du-te sănătos, că și eu nădăjduiesc să mă întorc peste curând. Calul plecă cu săgeata de iute. Văzând palaturile dărâmate și cu buruieni crescute pe dânsele, ofta și cu lacrimi în ochi, câtă să-și aducă aminte cât erau odată de luminate aste palaturi și cum și-a petrecut copilăria în ele, ocolit de vreo 2-3 ori, cercetând fiecare cămară, fiecare colțuleț ce îi aducea aminte cele trecute. Grajdul în care găsise calul se pogorâ apoi în pivniță, gârliciul căreia se astupase de dărâmăturile căzute. Căutând într-o parte și în alta, cu barba albă până la genunchi, ridicându-și pleoapele ochilor cu mâinile și abia umblând, nu găsi decât un tron odorogit. Îl deschise, dar în el nimic nu găsi. Ridică capul chichiței și un glas slăbănogit îi zise: Bine ai venit, că de mai întârziai și eu mă prăpădeam. O palmă îi trase moartea lui, care se uscase de se făcuse călig în chichiță și căzu mort și îndată ce și făcu țărână. Iar eu încălecai pe oșa și vă spusei dumneavoastră așa. That's the end of that story. It's a pretty strange one. It's basically about Pat Fromos is like Prince Charming, and yeah, he went on an adventure to find someone called Youth Without Oldhood and Life Without Death, and he had like a four-winged horse to help him on his journey, and eventually he found this enchanted land and the love of his life, but much like the stories in about paradise, there was one thing he was not supposed to do, and he did it, and that was to find the Valley of Sorrow. And once he found this Valley of Sorrow, he had like unescapable urge to return home to his family, and he had no choice but to leave his wife behind. And as he left this enchanted land, he realized that he was there actually for a very long time. Like that's why it's called Youth Without Oldhood and Life Without Death, because their time apparently stopped, and as soon as he left that realm, he became old again. He saw how the places that he went to before were no longer the same, and his kingdom wasn't there anymore either, just ruins. And at the very end, he meets death and he just dies. So, yeah, it's a bit of a sad story. But hope you guys enjoyed it regardless. Okay, let's see. What should I read next? I think I will read a short story in Hungarian next. Just, the purpose is here to show off the different languages that I speak, and also to delve into each of their cultures, like to each of the people's cultures here, find maybe similarities between the folk tales, and also help you guys relax in the meantime. Gergő Juhász Kanala. Egyszer Mátyás királynak a Hortobágyon átvitt az útja. Este volt már. Látta a király, hogy egy tűz mellett juhászok tesznek-vesznek. Éppen a vacsorát készítették egy nagy bográcsban. Lebbencslevest főztek. Percelték a szalonnát, a hagymát, meg paprikázták, felöntötték, majd száraz tésztát tettek bele. Jó szaga volt az ételnek. Mátyás éhes is volt. Fel és alá járt a nyeldeklője. Gondolta, meghivatja magát vacsorára. Közelebb lépett hát. Adjon Isten jó estét! Adjon Isten neked is, atyám fia! Mi áradban vagy? Kérdezte a juhos gazda. Mátyás deák vagyok, szolgálat után járok. Igen, megéheztem. Adnának-e valami ennivalót? Megfizetném tisztességgel. Szívesen látunk a bográcsunknál. Fizetséggel meg ne gondolj semmit, deák úr. Jut is, marad is. Elkészült a lebbencs, szépen eszegetni kezdtek. Fakanállal meregették a finom levest. Egyszer valami megtetszett Mátyásnak a bogrács másik oldalán, éppen Gergő juhász a juhos gazda felőli oldalon. Mindjárt oda kotort a kanálával. Gergő juhász abban a minutumban jó nagyot koppantott a kezére a fakanállal. Rá is szólt a királyra. Magad elől kanal az édes fiam, nem máshonnan. Mátyás király nem szólt semmit. Gondolta, ezt még visszaadja juhásznak. Elköltötték a vacsorát, és nyugovóra tértek. Mátyás királynak is igazítottak egy kis vackot a szárnyék oldalán. Reggel a király továbbállt egy házzal. Egy nap Gergő juhász levelet kapott Budáról. Ekkor a király vendégséget csinált. Úgy készüljön, hogy azon a napon a király hintót küld érte, és viszik őt a vendégségbe. Na, töprengett Gergő juhász, hogy műthetett ő felségébe. Éppen én hiányzom onnan a sok cifra nép közül, amelyik ott Budán lebzsel. De hát, ő a király, ő tudja, gondolta Gergő juhász. Nevezett napon megállt egy fényes hinta a pusztán. Gergő juhászt keresték. Na, ennek fele se tréfa, menni köl, gondolta juhász. Magára kapta a cifra szűrét, és felkapaszkodott a hintóba. Budán már állt a vigasság. Mátyás király mindjárt meglátta juhászt, de úgy tett, mintha sohasem látta volna. A juhász meg most, hogy így közelről láthatta a királyt, rémületbe esett. Akármi legyék, ha nem ennek sóztam a kezére odahaza. Eljött az ebéd ideje. Az asztalhoz tessékelték a vendégeket. Azt mondta Mátyás, ebb, aki a levesét meg nem eszi. Az urak kanalazni kezdtek. Gergő juhász akkor vette észre, hogy az ő tányérja mellé nem tettek kanalat. Azt gondolta, az asztali szolga megfeledkezett róla. Nem akarta, hogy valaki miatta megbüntessenek, hát nem szólt senkinek. Persze a dolog úgy volt, hogy Mátyás adta ki parancsba, ne adjanak Gergő juhásznak kanalat. Kicsit megtréfálta az öreget, amiért a kezére koppintott ott a hortobágyon. Gergő juhász egy darabig tanácstalanul pislogott, mint a béka a kocsonyában, aztán a bicskával lemetszette egy kenyér gyűrköjét, kicsippentette a belét, s azzal kanalazta ki a levest. Amikor a leves elfogyott, ő is felkiáltott. Ebb, aki a kanalát meg nem eszi. Azzal a jó puhára ázott kenyérhajat megfalatozta. Jót nevetett Mátyás király Gergő juhász tréfáján. Ebéd után bőségesen megajándékozta, s úgy megbocsátotta haza a hortobágyra. So, to give a resume, this story was about King Matthias Corwin, who was like an actual king in, I believe, the 15th century in Hungary, and there are a lot of folk tales about him, how he would often take on disguise and, mingle among the people and test them in one way or another. And in this particular story, he went to like a shepherd, and the shepherd was kind enough to offer him supper for free. And while the king was eating, he try to get something, some kind of meat out of from the other end of the. Like, I guess I should say that they were eating from the same bowl because it was a poor shepherd and they had two spoons though, so the idea was that they would share the soup, and the king was trying to get something from the other end of the bowl, and that's where the shepherd's side was. And when he tried to get that, he smacked over his hand with the wooden spoon and didn't let him. So, but the thing is, he didn't know it was the king at the time, and so the king wanted to have a bit of revenge, and so he invited a few days later the shepherd to his place and had a great feast. And he sat everyone down at the table, but uh, as as to avenge the time that he got hit with a wooden spoon, he didn't give a spoon for the shepherd. So uh, Gergu, he had to improvise. He didn't want to make a big fuss about it. He recognized that, yeah, oh shit, he just hit the king a few days earlier. So he took out his pocket knife. He cut up the bread in a shape so that it would form a spoon, and then he used that to eat his soup. And then towards the end, he ate the spoon itself, which was like a piece of bread. So the king was very impressed and he forgave him. And it says towards the end that he even gave him a lot of gifts and allowed him to go back home to Hortobágy, which, yeah, it's a lovely little story. Like, it may not have any magical creatures or anything, and it's based on a real person. But the thing is, because it's like a folk tale and it's not something properly documented, you don't really know it if it was true. It may just have been something made up to glorify the king of Hungary. But it's a lovely story nonetheless. Like, these stories often describe that King Matthias always had a great sense of humor and also was very just. Okay, shall we move on to a German story? Just hydrate real quick. I just noticed I'm almost at 3.5 hours, so I think I'm gonna read just one German story and one story in Japanese. Hopefully some short ones, and then I'll probably wrap it up for today. What should I read? I should have picked story ahead of the time, I suppose. Is this the entire story or just... Okay, this is not a folk tale, it's... This is a more of a modern story, but I don't want to waste too much time looking for them. Let's see, something with some good reviews. Okay, so I guess we're gonna switch it up, and instead of old folk tales, gonna read something more modern. This is from someone named Caroline S, and it seems to take place in 2007, so I'm curious. And I'm also curious like how good my German still is. I once again will translate at the end, don't worry guys. I usually speak only in English in my streams to so that as many people understand me as possible. Alright, 10 Days Love Affair. Januar 2007. Endlich bin ich 18 und endlich darf ich legal und offiziell in die Disco gehen. Da bietet sich die Ringlo-Schuppen mit seinem Alternative Friday an, der die Songs meines Herzens spielt. Kann man sich einer Disco zu Hause fühlen? Alle Jungs sehen wie Rockstars aus und ich surfe auf der Spitze der Indie-Welle, die seit ein paar Jahren aus Großbritannien Okay, this is like pretty stupid modern story. I'd rather read a classic. Wanna be consistent. Let me just look for something real quick. Okay, how about this one? Steine im Wasser. Als Kind warf ich einen Stein ins Wasser, um zu sehen, wie die Wellen riffeln. Die Erregung gefiel mir und bald kam ich wieder. Mit der Zeit wurde ich älter und stärker, die Steine wurden größer. Noch erholte sich das Wasser nach einem Wurf. Es muss mit 16 gewesen sein, als ich realisierte, wie aufregend die ständige Unruhe war. Immer mehr Steine schleppte ich ans Ufer, warf sie hinein und ließ nie zu, dass sich die Wasseroberfläche beruhigte. Irgendwann holte ich meine Freunde dazu, denn je mehr Steine flogen, desto mehr Glück empfanden wir. Nach und nach bildete sich ein Loch im Grund des Sees. Die Last der Steine war zu groß. Sie brachen hindurch und ein reißender Abgrund tat sich auf. Das Wasser riffelte jetzt sich nicht mehr, es versagte in einen tosenden Strudel im Boden. Und obwohl ich ahnte, was ich getan hatte, zog mich der Wirbel in seinen Bahn. Von hier an alle Chaos, jeder Moment der Veränderung. Plötzlich ging alles so schnell, die 2 vor der Null, die Angst vor der Zukunft und dieser alles vernichtende Strudel. Glück und Depression in gleichmäßigen hohen Dosen, dazwischen das bestäubende Gefühl der inneren Einsicht. Eine Stimme, die sagt, mach weiter, wenn du nicht willst, dass deine Realität einbricht. Denn was bist du ohne mich? Denn was bist du ohne mich? Mein Kumpel Danny setzte sich zu mir und legte seine Hand auf meine Schulter. Von da an war ich nie wieder allein. Wir stellten dem Glück hinterher, bis die dunkelsten Ecken dieser Erde unsere Euphorie, Medizin und Gift zugleich. Doch es gibt kein Zurück, wenn dich dein Lebensgeist abtreibt. Und dann, solange du an Dämonen und Engel glaubst, hoffst du auf eine Göttin, die dich irgendwann aus deiner Misere befreit. Okay. So I think this was again more of a modern story about a guy who liked to play skipping stones, and I don't know, I got kind of confused towards the end. Like, he kept throwing more and more stones, he got stronger and stronger, and then he started talking about how some point a voice started talking to him to continue, unless he wanted to uh, have misfortune. I don't know. It's very strange, and it says something about his friend Danny, that he was there, and it seems like when I click on the words "my friend Danny," it brings me to another story. So I guess it's like a number of connected stories. I'm gonna find some better German stories for next time, but I think right now I want to actually move on to Japanese reading, which will be the most difficult for me as I'm still learning the language. And let's see, I believe I had this one prepared. Wait, where was it? Okay, yeah. So, this is a story called Momotaro. Momotaro is one of the most famous traditional folk tales in Japan. And what I'm going to do actually is, because that's the way the site is laid out, is that I'm going to read it in Japanese, and then after each sentence I'm going to provide the English translation. It was just a bit of a background. It was made before the Edo era, so before the era of the samurai, and yeah, it just like it prefaces that it's one of the most well-known stories. Like you will find Momotaro present in some way or another in modern media. Like it says that One Piece had some inspiration from it. So yeah, this is a pretty short story, and hopefully I won't butcher the Japanese part too much, but at least there's always the English translation as well. Okay. Mukashi mukashi aru tokoro ni oji-san to oba-san ga kurashite imashita. Long, long ago, in a place far away, an old man and an old woman were living. Aruhi, Oba-san wa kawa e sentaku ni ikimashita. One day, the old woman went out to the river for laundry. Suruto, kamakira totemo okina momo ga nagarete kimashita. Okay, I think my mistake is trying to read the Romaji, which is like all in syllables, and I can't recognize the words. I think I'm better off reading the hiragana. Okay, let me try that again. Suruto, kawakami kara totemo okina momo ga nagarete kimashita. Then a very large peach came drifting down the river. Bikkurishita Oba-san wa sono momo o ie ni motte kaeri oji-san ni misemashita. The old woman was surprised. She took it to their home and she showed it to the old man. Oji-san wa kono momo o kite mi yo to iimashita. The old man said, "Let's try to cut this peach." Momo o kite miru to momo no nakanaka genki na okanbo ga dete kimashita. When they cut the peach, an energetic baby came from the peach. おじいさんとおばあさんはその赤ん坊を桃太郎と、名付けました。The old man and the old woman named him Momotaro. 桃太郎はたくさん、ご飯を、ご飯を食べ、大きくさ立ちました。そう立ちました。Momotaro ate a lot of food and he grew to be large. ある日、桃太郎は近所村を、荷が遅い、宝物を、盗んでいるというは、話を聞きました。One day, Momotaro heard stories that demons had attacked nearby villages to steal their treasure. 桃太郎はおじいさんとおばあさんに、僕、鬼退治に行ってくるよ、と言いました。Momotaro said, I will go to slay the demons to the old woman and the old man. おばあさんは桃太郎のために、きびだんごを作って桃太郎に渡しました。The old man made millet dumplings and Momotaro took them. こうして桃太郎は鬼たちが住んでいる鬼ヶ島への旅に出発しました。Then Momotaro set out to Onigashima where the demons live. 桃太郎が、鬼神へ、向かって歩いていると、犬が、話しかけてま、sorry. 犬が話しかけてきました。While Momotaro was walking to Onigashima, a dog spoke to him. Momotaro-san, あなたのきびだんごを僕にください。Mr. Momotaro, please give me your millet dumpling. Momotaro はきびだんごをあなたにあげます。その代わり、私と一緒に鬼退治に来ましょう。と言いました。Momotaro said, I will give you a millet dumpling. In exchange, let's go slay the demons. 犬は、わかりました。僕の牙で鬼と戦います。と言いました。The dog said, I understand. I will fight the demons using my fangs. I heard about Momotaro before, but I never actually read the story. Pretty interesting. しばらく歩いていくと、今度は猿が話しかけてきました。After a while, a monkey spoke to them. Momotaro-san, あなたの、きびだんごを僕にください。Mr. Momotaro, please give me your millet dumpling. Oh, I see where this is going. Momotaro はきびだんごをあなたにあげます。その代わり、私と一緒に鬼退治に来ましょうと言いました。Momotaro said, I will give you a millet dumpling. In exchange, let's go slay the demons. 猿は、わかりました。僕の爪で鬼と戦いますと言いました。The monkey said, I understand. I will fight the demons using my claws. So that's tsume. Claws. Okay. しばらく歩いてきと、今度は血が話しかけてきました。After walking for a while, a pheasant spoke to them. Momotaro-san, anata no kibitango o watashi ni kudasai. Mr. Momotaro, please give me your milk dumpling. Oh, third time's a charm. Momotaro wa kibidango o anata ni agemasu. Sona kawari, watashi to issho ni onitaiji ni ikimashou. To iimashita. Momotaro said, I will give you a millet dumpling. In exchange, let's go slay the demons. Kiji wa wakarimashita. Watashi no kuchiba... Sorry. Watashi no kuchiba deshi de oni to tatakaimasu. To iimashita. The pheasant said, I understand. I will fight the demons using my beak. Okay, so far we have a dog who's gonna bite, a monkey who's gonna use its claws, and the pheasant will use its beaks. I'm sure the demons will stand no chance. Okay, this is gonna be a difficult sentence. Koshite Momotaro wa inu, saro, kiji to tomo ni Onigashima ni iki, Onitaichi to tatakaimashita. Then Momotaro went to Onigashima with the dog, the monkey, and the pheasant, and fought against the demons. Inu wa Onitachi ni kamitsuki, saru wa Onitachi o hikkaki, kiji wa Onitachi no mowotsu tsukimashita. The dog beat the demons, the monkey scratched them, and the pheasant picked their eyes. Onitachi wa kanben kanben shitekure to inigara onigashi ma kara ni gete ikimashita. The demons ran from Onigashima saying, please forgive us. Okay, I heard forgive us, but never under this sentence, kanben shitekure eru. Like, this is probably old Japanese, a lot of expressions that are not used today when learning the language. Momotaro wa Onitachi no takara wo omotte oji-san to oba-san no ie ni kairimashita. Momotaro went back to the old man and the old woman's home, bringing the demon's treasures. それを見てびっくりしたおじいさんとおばあさんは、偉いぞ桃太郎。お前は日本一だと言いました。The old man and the old woman were surprised and they said, You are great. You are the best in Japan. What a lovely story. So to sum it up, well, you heard the translation in the meantime, but basically, again, it seems to have to be the theme where a child is found in some kind of strange, in the most unlikely object, and here a child was found inside a peach, and that's why he's named Momotaro. Momo is peach in Japanese, and it seemed like one day he set out on an adventure to slay the demons, or Oni, at the place called, what was it called? Again, Onigashima. Yeah, Onigashima. So he basically went out on his own. His parents begged him, foster parents, or to say it better, begged him not to go, but they still prepared some dumplings for him on the road, and yeah, he was generous enough to give it to a monkey, a pheasant, and a dog on the road, but you know, he was generous but also clever. He was like, okay, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. I will give you something to eat, but in exchange, you will help me in my fight. And yeah, all the animals, they each brought something of their own to the fight, and yeah, in the end they managed to defeat the demons, and the story ends with the old man and woman praising Momotaro for being the best. So yeah, lovely little story. And with that, we have actually reached the end of our stream. Went for almost 4 hours now. Like during the weekends when it's like when I have more free time, you can expect me to have longer streams. I hope you enjoy the stories, and if you didn't get the so-called ASMR tingles, you still found it relaxing and you know found it interesting to delve into these different cultures. With this, the week of streaming for me wraps up tomorrow. I will most likely post the schedule. I will make it both here on Twitch in the countdown below, and also have like a schedule graphic on my Twitter, so go check those out if you'd like. But for now, let's go see if we can share the love and find someone to rate. Let's see, what do we have here? Okay. Rate channel. You know what? I have a few people in mind, but I'd rather not bring you guys from a chill ASMR stream to like a loud, chaotic gaming stream. So I'm searching right now for uh, someone who's also doing ASMR right now. Let's see. How about this one? Mm. Oh, not this one. I don't like how this looks. Sorry guys, this is going to take just a moment. Like I'm still starting out and I still have much to learn about ASMR, but yeah. Uh, let's see, this looks pretty promising, I suppose. Oh, this is Japanese though, so I'd rather find someone English speaking and most likely some smaller content creator like myself. Oh, should it be? Okay. Okay, so this will be an example of someone who has an actual ASMR mic with special setup, and they do all these kinds of special triggers from one ear to the other, massage and stuff. Yeah, let's rate them. ASMR Julia Kazumi. But yeah, thank you very much for checking out my stream. I hope you enjoyed the stories, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye. This is the rate message. Never mind. It seems like I need to fix that. Okay. See you guys later.